A while back, I was looking at my Steam list, debating on what new to sit down and play. Remember Me won competition, and I really enjoyed it. So when I was in my local used game store, I came across it again, and it was only a few bucks. I said, you know what? I really enjoyed this. Screw it. I'm buying it. Because, trophies. And good review material. My PC is acting funky with some stuttery recording yet, so I figured that the PS3 version would make it much easier to record too. So here we are. Remember Me plops you into the role of a woman named Neelan, who appropriately has amnesia. At least this time around, there's a reason though. She's been captured, and the company behind it, Memorize, is sucking her brain dry through a device called a Sensen. The reason why isn't immediately apparent, but you'll eventually learn that because she's a memory hunter, an assassin who hunts down people and uses their memories against them. That's why she got captured. They are also classed as terrorists, which you can think of as cybernetic terrorists. Anyway, she's sprung out of her cell by a man named Edge, who wants to enlist Neelan to his cause of taking down the Memorize Corporation and their leaders. There's a lot more to the story, but I won't spoil it, because there's a lot of plot twists and oh shit moments, up until the final battles of the game. And it's worth playing through just to get the story. The game at its core is a beat 'em up, with a system not unlike the Batman Arkham games. The nice thing is that the game ignores most RPG aspects that most of these styles of games have. Sure, there is a slight XP system, but its implementation is minimal. I'll get to how that works in a bit. But first, the combat itself. Neelan moves in between areas, and will be stopped at times to exchange fisticuffs. It's simple enough to fight. There's only two buttons to attack, square and triangle. I'm not sure if this is entirely true, but it seems that square punches and triangle throws a kick. Obviously, you can alternate attacks to create combos, but combos are one of the main selling points of combat, and they're given to you. Here's how it works. As you progress through the game, you'll unlock a few combos. Each of these combos can be further customized with something called a pressin. There are 4 different types that can be slotted into your combos. These are power, regen, cooldown, and chain. Power allows you to hit harder. Regen heals you up, which is a pure necessity in the more difficult battles. Cooldown hits will reduce the amount of time between your S-pressin skills, which I'll get to momentarily. And chain strikes will amplify the benefit of the previous hit in the combo. These different strikes are all unlocked using the only thing resembling any sort of RPG system. You'll earn fragments of PNP, which I honestly can't remember what it stands for. Once you reach a certain PNP level, you'll be able to unlock a pressin. You might think that you could just keep unlocking a whole string of regen pressins to never die, but it's not quite that simple. See, when you do get a point, you only get one of 2 potential pressins, a punch and a kick. So as much as you might want to really customize these combo chains, you are allowed to do so only in a somewhat linear path. The combos can't be customized with your own button presses either. Each one has a specific input needed to complete the attack. For example, your first combo will always be square, square, square. The next will always be an alternating triangle and square set. Many times you might not even have enough pressins to fully flesh out the combo either. And if that's the case, the game won't bother to show you the inputs as you're performing them, as you can see on the bottom of the screen. There's another important detail to fighting. Combos only succeed when done against the same enemy. If you change targets, your string will be reset, and you'll have to start over. This may not sound like a huge deal, but when you're aiming for higher combos for the benefits and PNP bonuses, it can be somewhat frustrating to reset it when you accidentally take a new target. To avoid this, you can use X to evade an attack and then resume punching the original enemy. There's one other thing to note about combos. The further in the chain that you put a press in, the more efficient it is. It'll increase your health more. It will increase the cooldowns on your used S-pressin. It'll make your hits harder. And in the case of chains, it'll make the previous pressin steroids strong. Of course, that comes at the risk of it being at the end of the strike chain, so you don't just want to rely on finishing the more advanced 6 or 8 hit combos. Perhaps I should mention that when it comes down to it, there's only 4 available chains to use. A 3, 5, 6, and 8 set. So there's going to be some repetitive button pushing. And I know when I was performing the 8-strike one, I did a lot of counting to myself. Triangle, 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 square, 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 triangle. See, I still know it a few days later. Let's move on to the S-pressins. There's 5 available skills that require something called focus, which charges when hitting or getting hit. These expressions are just special attacks that require a cooldown when using them, hence the necessary cooldown pressing. There's a few that you may use more than others, such as the Sensen DOS, which stuns almost every enemy. You can turn robots against humans by using the Rust in Peace expression. One of the most useful is the late game Camo ability, which lets you go completely behind the scenes to take down an enemy in a single backstab, or in this case, a memory overload, which looks badass every time you accomplish one. These abilities can't be relied on too much, but they will definitely help in a pinch. And that's the combat in a nutshell. It's simplistic, sure, but it works well for the game. Remember Me seems to focus more on the story and atmosphere than the gameplay, which is fine because the gameplay is still solid. But the atmosphere of the game is fantastic. Nilin is mostly running around in a place called Neo Paris, of which technology is flourishing. The Sensen, which captures and stores all of your memories, allows you to interact with the environment, showing messages on what seems like a worldly UI. It's actually really cool to see all this implemented. In addition, you'll see a lot of cyborgs doing menial tasks around the city. Cleaning, cooking, serving, etc. All the while, normal people are just going about their day leisurely. But not all is sparkles and sunshine, of course. Before you get to this part of the city, you'll first be introduced to the underbelly, the humorously named Slum 404. Creatures that went crazy are called Leapers, and they're constantly harassing the denizens of these slums. And while the Leapers are harassing these citizens, when you do get into the fancier parts of the city, members of the Saber Force come after Nilin, trying to take her back into custody. So as much as the city seems like the peaceful home that everyone calls it, it does have its hostile sides that are always trying to assault Nilin. Let's get back into Nilin's abilities. She can steal memories to learn special things like codes, paths, etc. But that's not all. She can also do something called a memory remix. This acts almost like an adventure game, where you're given an objective and have to interact with specific objects to make it happen. For example, in the first remix, you encounter a bounty hunter named Olga, who's trying to save her husband by infusing him with some of her more pleasant memories of them together. What you have to do is fiddle with her brain to make her think that the doctor doing the operation killed her. What this amounts to is Olga not remembering the correct events, but only what was fed into her brain. This only happens about 4 times in the game, which is a shame, because these parts were really entertaining. I really do wish that there were more of them. Nilin also gets a few projectile weapons that can be used. These are primarily obtained after defeating bosses. The first is a basic shot that can knock leapers off of walls. The second can destroy what are considered structural weaknesses. It can do a nice bit of damage to enemies when you can blast them with it. You can move things around with something called junk bits too, although that is just used for platforming. The only time you're ever required to use this stuff in battle is when turning on light sources to battle some of the more stealthy leapers and to destroy robots, as they can't be punched. It's simple enough to use, when and if you want to, in battle. There's not a lot of music in the game, but it's pretty well implemented when it does play. As you're doing well in a fight, like not getting hit, the music will increase its tempo and introduce more instruments and beats. Once you do take damage, the music will cut back to its barest form. I like this style, and it suits the game perfectly. And that's Remember Me. It's a really fun game, and one that has a nice balance of basic fighting action, platforming, and puzzles. The world of Neo Paris is amazing, and you'll be soaking in every detail, whether it's Slum 404 or the high rises above. The boss battles are entertaining, and damn, I really love those memory remixing scenes. The game takes about 6 to 8 hours to complete, which seems about right for the game's story. Nothing is ever forced, and even the ending is fairly satisfying. If you find this one in the wilds, check it out. Final score? 8 out of 10. This is Reaper. Happy fragging.